Welcome everyone. We welcome this afternoon on the TV stage of La Galerie James Spalding, Chief Executive Officer of ITAIPU Binacional. Mr. James Spalding, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I am James Spalding, the Paraguayan General Director of ITAIPU, which is a joint venture between the governments of Paraguay and Brazil, the second largest hydroelectric dam in the world.
Can you tell us more about ITAIPU, where it is, and what it means?
Yes, ITAIPU Binacional is located on the borders of Paraguay and Brazil in South America. We're on the river Paraná, which is one of the most important rivers in the world. We have about 17,000 cubic meters of water each second, which gave birth to the opportunity to have a hydroelectric dam such as ITAIPU. The name ITAIPU comes from the Guarani people, the indigenous people of our country, and it means the stone that sings, because where the water used to pass in the river, there was a small island, and in that island there was stones, so it make a noise, so ITAIPU means a stone that sings. Now we have a hydroelectric dam with an installed capacity of 14,000 megawatts. We have the world record of energy production of 2013. In 2014, the Chinese dam Three Gorges produced a little bit more energy. But ITAIPU, that is producing energy since 1984, has the world record of the most energy produced in the world, 2.3 billion megawatt hours. So it's a clean and renewable energy that is being provided to over 40 million people in Paraguay and in Brazil. Right.
So there are actually two components that are very important to highlight about ITAIPU. First, it is the largest clean source of energy and the largest accumulated energy production, but it is also an exemplary sustainable management that you develop. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, ITAIPU, as I mentioned, began operating in 1984. The Treaty of ITAIPU, as it's between two countries, we had a treaty signed in 1973. ITAIPU was created in 1974. And between the construction and of operation, we began operating in May of 1984. Since then, we now have 20 turbines of 700 megawatts each. The installed capacity is 14,000. But ITAIPU was always thought of being more than just energy production. This is the reason that in the year 2003, the mission and vision of ITAIPU was modified to include social responsibility. But even in 1970s, ITAIPU was an example for the protection of the environment, because at that time, over 100,000 hectares of land on the borders of Paraguay and Brazil were bought by ITAIPU and converted into protected areas. So we have 7 hectares of land protected for each megawatt of installed capacity, which is one of the ratios in the world. So we've been working steadily on environmental aspects, on social responsibility. ITAIPU is a dam that pays royalties to both governments, so there's an income that the government of Paraguay and the government of Brazil receive for the use of the water. But we also destine an important amount of our budget to environmental and social responsibility actions. So we're involved in a lot of collaboration with the governments, with the municipalities, with the communities, with the civil society. And it was really historic to receive in February of this year the visit of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. He visited Paraguay, and in his agenda he asked to go visit ITAIPU. So to have the Secretary General show interest in visiting a company, and to have him there and seeing what we're doing and the example that ITAIPU can be for the world on how to be a sustainable company, it was very, very interesting. And it was on behalf of, is Ban Ki-moon's request that we are now participating this year in COP21 here at a stand. I also form part of the Paraguayan official delegation with our president, who was here on Monday. And we are also in New York at the beginning of the year at the Sea for All second conference, Sustainable Energy for All. So we are working very closely with the United Nations on different areas. Water protection is one of them also. And in other areas such as biodiversity and on other aspects.
Indeed, ITAIPU was awarded also by the United Nations Water Programme, and it is best practice for water management and sustainable development and management. Indeed, isn't it?
Yes, we are very pleased and honored to receive in March of this year the award of the UN Water Programme in the decade Water for Life. And this was for a program that ITAIPU has implemented over 10 years ago, which is called Cultivating Good Water, and where we have a very important action with the local communities in working on how to convert their communities into a sustainable environment, and to also teach them to protect the rivers, to protect the forests, and little by little improve the quality of life. So for us, for the United Nations to hand us this award, given the amount of countries and initiatives that were presented this year, for it to be ITAIPU was really an honor, and to receive it in New York at the United Nations was obviously historic.
What is also very special about ITAIPU, it is a binational organization, a binational management. Can you tell us how two countries cooperate to manage the project on the site?
Yes, that's a very interesting point, because we've also worked with other countries that have similar challenges of two countries sharing the same river. So in the case of Paraguay and Brazil, this was, as I mentioned, a joint venture, 1973 by treaty. It's one company, so we have a Paraguayan general director, and I have a colleague, Jorge Samek, who's a Brazilian general director. And then we have 5 directors on the Paraguayan side and 5 on the Brazilian side. And we meet every 2 weeks at regular board meetings. We also have an advisory board, which has representatives of the government. And as we like to say, ITAIPU is an example of how two countries can work together. A lot of people have said before that the river divides two countries, and we consider that ITAIPU is a very good example of how a river can really unite two countries and how we can work in favor of both of our population.
This point is very exceptional in the context of the COP21, where 195 countries have to collaborate and to unite on the topic of climate. This comes to another point. We are meeting today in the context of the COP21. So what message would you deliver about climate action as a representative of the South American Latin continent?
Well, that's a difficult question, but I think there's a new fresh breath of air for the climate. I think the fact, as you mentioned, to have 195 countries present here in Paris, the fact that 150 head of state were here on Monday giving their speeches and actions in favor of the initiatives of the COP21. And we're all hopeful that by the end of the negotiations we'll have a document that has a consensus. But I think it's also interesting to see the amount of private companies here that are also supporting these actions. So to create that synergy between countries, because as we always say, there's only one planet. Countries such as Paraguay, we have very little impact on climate change from the emissions. But on the contrary, Paraguay, for example, just yesterday, an NGO from London, the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, has put Paraguay as the #1 country of percentage use of renewable energy. So 99.4% of our energy is from clean and renewable origin. So I think we think it's an example of what can be done. We're hoping that, as I said, there will be a consensus reached to look forward to working as one planet in the benefit of all the future generations.
Thank you, Mr. James Spalding. And everyone can meet you on ITAIPU booth at la Galerie des Solutions at the COP21. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this space. Thank you.